Hey everybody, and thank you for doing your daily sign-in into the world of video games. Today we're gonna be talking about two of the games that took the world by storm, are sharing a bit of the roadmap that they had ahead so that we can receive a little bit more content and keep enjoying those fun moments that we endure in Phasmophobia and Among Us. We're also going to be talking about Watch Dogs Legion getting attacked by its own kind, and the storage information that we received today in regards to the next generation console. All this and more on your daily sign-in. But as always, I would appreciate that if you like what you see, that you click the like button. And if you don't want to miss any of your daily signings and video game discussions that we do here every single weekday, make sure to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube and hit that notification bell. Don't miss a single one. All right, let's get started with our first piece of news. Let's talk about Among Us, shall we? So it seems like Innersloth, the developers behind the highly successful Among Us game, a game that has been out for quite a while, almost 2 years or more than 2 years, but just recently, and I mean in the past 2 months, got really popular due to a lot of people streaming it and people actually getting attention and seeing how fun this kind of game can actually be. So today we got a little bit of a small patch notes and also a little bit of a small roadmap ahead. Obviously they're a small developer, so they didn't expect this huge popularity to surge all of a sudden, but they're handling quite well so far, especially because the game is highly replayable among all friends. So some of the things that they are adding up is that they added anonymous voting, added a taskbar mode, essentially whether you can actually see the taskbar or you cannot see the taskbar. All these things we have seen in the beta. We can also see the invisible mode removes the taskbar entirely. Mira comms sabotage clears the security locks. Added symbols to fix wire task. Added cosmetic to meeting screens. Various bug fixes. So essentially all the things that they're doing right here is a little bit to help the imposter side of gameplays here, especially with the anonymous voting and hiding the taskbar, because a lot of the strategic things that happen is you can actually see if the imposters themselves didn't complete a task, other people could call them out on it because they didn't see the task move up and stuff like that. I think that is a really good change. It allows the imposters to have a little bit more of a chance, especially once you play quite a bit, you can kind of tell. And you can get the tells ins and outs. So it's good to have this extra functionality there to mix up the gameplay a little bit. But more importantly, they also share some of the things that are coming ahead, some of the things to look forward to, especially in this day and age. So they talked about accounts. They said that we're hoping to get accounts into the game by December. This will allow players to report accounts that are toxic and or hacking. They may be a bit of bare bones at first, but things like friends list is also coming at a later date. It's interesting because for this particular part, I wasn't too, on my personal take, I'm not too excited about that, because honestly, I don't play a lot with anonymous people. Usually I get a group together over Discord, and if I play with people that I haven't met before, there's usually 1 or 2 people that I know. So it kind of flows like that. I've never been into the random matchmaking that the game provides and just having to play that like that. I will need to try to see how that experience is like. I don't imagine that it's as fun as playing with your friends, or at least with people that you know and you have played before, so you can kind of either understand the game a little bit better and feel more comfortable in that group, I would say. The one thing though that they said they put up here is a new map. They said they were hard at work on a new map. This map is currently looking bigger than Polis, which is one of their biggest maps. The maps will contain plenty of new tasks and will be available for free to all players. This is exciting. Obviously, one of the fun parts about this is having the ability to have multiple maps, especially since the only 3 maps are in the game. You kind of already know, you can already have your favorite, and you also have the areas that you think that you can know. So having a new map and new activities kind of gives a little bit more explorability and ways to lie, essentially, to confuse your enemies. And on top of that, they're adding translation and localization to other multiple languages, and colorblind support, which is pretty freaking awesome. Especially, they already added those little symbols that you put on the cables themselves to allow them to put them back together. But having this usability plus the increase of content given the new map is exciting. I'm personally excited to try it out with the buds. We used to have a thing in the twitch.tv/online games called Murder Mondays, where we just hang out with the community and play some Among Us. It will be really fun to bring it back. But in the other side of games that became popular all of a sudden, we had Phasmophobia. This one kind of took off during the October month, essentially, as people, it obviously tied into Halloween, all the theme, people want to have the spooks. But this game, one of the most fascinating things is it was developed by one person, was put on early access, and that person just is the first time that they're actually making a game without having previous development experience. So then having able to do something real cool, it's awesome. It's awesome to see that people are looking past the bugs, because it is kind of buggy in certain areas. It's not the most polished game that you will see out there, but it is really fun to play with friends, and also it just expands on a mechanic that not a lot of other studios can push forward towards. The ability to have the proximity chat within a ghost capture, not a ghost capture, a ghost investigation game is actually pretty awesome. So the developer, this comes from IGN by Joe Scribbles. Essentially, they were talking about, they saw some of the things that Kinetic Games, which is made up by a single developer, they talked about their early access strategy. Essentially, when he said, he or she said, which is called Igniter, I was originally planning the early access to be short, where I just add a few more maps, ghost types, and equipment. However, due to the game's popularity, everyone's expectations are increased, so I'm going to have to reconsider my plans for the game's future. At the moment, my only focus is getting the major bugs fixed before I begin working on a new content. These bugs fixes will usually be sent out when they are ready, but due to me having to update a lot of the game's code and a lot of new systems need to be testing, so the next update will be a big stability and bug fix update. After these bugs are fixed, the new content will likely get bundled together with big updates. All new updates can be played on the beta version of the game, which everybody can access through Steam. He also kind of shows a little bit of their Trello board of what is coming up, because he's basically having planned out everything that he has in his roadmap. One of the things that he had is the second PvP mode was added to the Trello to see what everybody's reactions would be. Right now, I have no plans to add another game mode, as it will turn the game into something completely different and push the game away from what I want it to be. I want the game to remain 4 players versus 1 AI and balance the game, then add new features around the playstyle. It's pretty interesting though, the fact that he was already exploring other game modes. This kind of strategy I really like, because it kind of showcases what the developer's plans are. So to get some community feedback and to see what they actually want, because a lot of the times we go in and we try to implement something that not necessarily vibes with the players that they want right now. So it's really cool to have this particular transparency with these players, and also the fact that he's working really hard at the stability and the bugs, because there's quite a few of them. Obviously, one developer and not having and getting the game this popular out is really cool to see, but at the same time, I can't imagine the amount of stress that he's feeling. I've been playing it. I play with people and I play by myself. Most of the time, it gets pretty scary and pretty fun to play, essentially, especially during the most. At the beginning, it's kind of easy and you're kind of spooked out already. But once you get going and you get to be hunting in the bigger arenas, it gets really cool as you. It gets a little bit less scary and more strategical, I would say. All right, so now enough of the small big games. Let's talk about one AAA game that apparently got attacked by its own kind. So Watch Dogs Legion. This comes from Eurogamer. By Wesley Jim Paul. Essentially, Ubisoft is investigating potential Watch Dogs Legion source code leaks. For those of you who don't know, source code is essentially what the initial implementation of the code is. It's not the binary that the computer actually reads. So it says that Ubisoft is investigating a potential Watch Dogs Legion source code leak. Back in October, a ransomware gang called Egregor leaked data it claimed it had obtained from the international networks of crisis maker Crytek and Ubisoft. Now, in a case of life imitating art, the source code for hacking adventure game Watch Dogs Legion has leaked online and weighs in at 560 gigabytes. And the only thing that was given by Ubisoft is we are aware of the group's claim and are currently investigating a potential data security incident, a spokesperson told Eurogamer. So as always, I recommend that you go check out the original story that is in the description below if you're reading this, watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this in your favorite podcast service. So this is mostly an FYI. It's interesting how this particular game was targeted for the source code, given all the other leaks. This game, obviously, it's more targeted. It's all its theme is around hacking and having the ability to create a hacking group that saves the world. It's funny that at the same time, in the real world, they are the ones who get hacked, and you get all the source code data from it. Obviously, not something that I personally encourage. Not the greatest news out there. It's just kind of interesting that this is the kind of game that got targeted. All right. Moving on from the Ubisoft leaks, let's talk about some potential Sony leaks, but more related to the PS5 usable storage. This is coming from the GamesRadar.com, and it's saying that essentially PS5 usable storage space is reportedly 667 gigabytes out of the 1 terabyte. And this story comes from Ali Jones at GamesRadar. That's essentially 135 gigabytes less than the Xbox Series X. So there was a little bit of a leaked image that showed the PS5 showing what is the usable storage, because as some of you may know, even though you get the console at 1 terabyte, for example, not all the storage in there is usable for you to install games and to put all your own data on it. A lot of a big chunk of it is taken up by the operating system, which is what makes the actual software run, make sure that the firmware is there, all ready to go for your own usable experience. This is standard for not only consoles, but computers, for Windows and Macs and everything like that. But the fact that the PS4 only has 667 gigabytes of storage, given according to this leak, of course, it's kind of disappointing in a way, because games are becoming very chunky nowadays. The other day we discussed the fact that you can what's it called, Call of Duty Cold War, Black Ops Cold War has a big chunky file size. Like on PCs, it can even get to 250 gigs. Obviously, it doesn't get as big on the consoles, but it's still quite a chunky. And that means by only having 667 gigabytes, you can only install around 5 to 6 games, maybe, if you don't have any of your videos or your photos in there as well. So it's kind of sad to see. It's also something to consider, given that the SSD is proprietary, meaning that any external storage that you add to it might not necessarily work with the PS5. I actually don't know the specifics about whether or not external storage is allowed, or if it even performs at the level that the PS5 storage, the SSD does. Especially because, again, that's one of the major selling points for the PS5, is the ability to have this crazy fast SSD that you can load things in and out very quickly. In a similar news, though, this comes from Brett Makedonsky over at Destructoid. It says that only 364 gigabytes of the Xbox Series S, 512 gigabyte SSDs is actually usable. So this is another piece of story talking about the different storage size that you can actually have. Apparently, according to this, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is actually 136 gigabyte install. So like right there, having such a small size capacity for both those two generations, the Xbox Series S and the PlayStation 5, it's a bit of a worry, because then you're gonna have to be moving games in and out, and depending on how you buy your games, whether they're digital or physical, you still need to download the patches, and the patches can be quite chunky, or your data usage, and that just kind of slows down the experience. And obviously, one of the main draw for the next generation of console is having convenience, having the ability to load games very quickly, the quick switching between games that Xbox offers, and the ability to load very quick games by both consoles is something that will be impacted if you just all the time have to keep unloading and downloading games to your system. Okay, but that is only for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series S. Apparently, the Xbox Series X, even though it doesn't have a full 1 terabyte of storage, it still has a very a big size for its own for the console itself. So you can still have around 802 gigabytes of actual usable storage on the Xbox Series X. Now, moving on to Immortal Phoenix Rising. This is a game that I'm actually looking forward to because it's coming out very close to the holiday season with the PlayStation on the Switch. And this is one of the games that have been pushed by Stadia quite a bit, which I found fascinating. But in case you don't know, this game is it's like a Ubisoft Greek mythology take with a big Breath of the Wild feel to it, very open world, a lot of climbing, gliding, puzzle solving, all that sort of stuff. There was a recent Q&A with Ubisoft to determine how close they can actually be to Breath of the Wild, given that in Breath of the Wild you're allowed to tackle the final boss straight after you get from out of the tutorial area. You are basically, or if you glitch out the tutorial area, even sooner than that. So a lot of people were saying, it's like, is this gonna follow a similar suit, meaning that you can actually go and tackle the final boss battle, which I always thought that it was gonna be something like Zeus, but we found out that it's not actually Zeus. In this one though, it seems like Immortal Phoenix Rising is not going to allow you to actually go in and fight the final boss right from the start. And this comes from, again, Rock, Paper, Shotgun by Lauren Morton. It essentially says, in Ubisoft new Q&A on Phoenix covers expected territory, changes to the game since its initial delay, aerial combat, and the characteristic of each of the main missions. What jumped out the most was the specific shout that you can't just run off to the final boss Typhoon immediately. It's as if someone at Ubisoft looked at the generously overlapped Venn diagram of Immortal Phoenix Rising and Breath of the Wild, spotted this bit, and thought, we better mention that. Again, like, since a lot of people are comparing this as Ubisoft's take on Breath of the Wild, it's interesting that it's even worth mentioning the fact that it's not gonna follow the same similar suit. Obviously it's their own take on it, their own story, their own characters, their own boss fights, it's their own game. It's not, even though they took inspiration from Breath of the Wild, doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be a 1-to-1. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, well, I guess we're about to find out once we get it on December 3rd for sure. And last but not least, let's talk about one game in particular. I'm a big Overwatch fan. I have a few Overwatch figures in the background here. And one thing that I have been missing is Overwatch 2 news. So, obviously we didn't get a Blizzcon this year, but we do know that there's a Blizzcon online coming up in February of next year. And one of the things that many people were speculating is whether or not you will need a premium ticket like you did before to actually watch the stream. But BlizzCon, Blizzard just confirmed that is not going to be required. So essentially, this comes from Destructoid by Chris Carter. Let me load up here the trailer for Overwatch 2 real quick. And it says, BlizzCon Online is slated to stream on February 19 and 20, a format that Blizzard can easily control the messaging for and be shielded from the potential boost of the audience. Whoa, that's a big take there, Chris. And essentially, you will not require a premium pass or anything of the sort required for full access. Instead, on a recent 2020 Blizzard Fireside Chat video, Blizzard President J. Allen Bragg confirms that the event will be completely free. Bragg is fairly plain in his statement, and in the first minute of the blog clip noted that we wanted it to be a big virtual celebration, so BlizzCon Online will be free to watch and engage in. I will link the actual fireside chat for the Blizzard 2020 in the chat, as well as the story by Chris here. But this is pretty good. Obviously, we got a few expectations for the announcements. So we got, like, for example, like Hearthstone and Heroes on the Storm probably get an expansion. And we will find out a little bit more about World of Warcraft, as we always do. But two of the games that I really want to know a little bit more about are, for example, Diablo 4. We haven't, obviously the last time we saw it was at BlizzCon, it looked really cool. We saw the first 5 archetypes, essentially, that you can actually play as. I really wanted to go back to Diablo 3 and actually finish it off before Diablo 4 comes out, but hopefully I get the time to do that. But Overwatch 2 is the one that I'm actually very excited about, because I haven't seen too much about it as only the initial mission that they got to play during the BlizzCon era. I saw a bunch of streamers actually going and playing it, and obviously the story trailer, which it impacted me so greatly. I really, really love how everything came together there. So whether we don't even know what the expectations are for Overwatch 2 now, given that it's more like a hybrid. It's not necessarily going to replace the current Overwatch multiplayer. It's going to keep going since it's been working really hard to add heroes and everything of the sort, but instead add like a paid version for the single player campaign, which is also co-op. And so it's a bit of an unknown still of as to what we will need to pay for, how it's going to be delivered and everything like that. So for me it's important to get to know a little bit more about this, because given that I was a big fan of Overwatch, even though I dropped out from the multiplayer a few months ago, it's important to me to get back to it, because I had a lot of fun in it, and having something more concrete will be awesome to look forward to for sure. Alright everybody, I think that's everything that I got for you today. Thanks again everybody who joined by on your daily sign-in. I appreciate every single one of you. Again, you can join us live every single weekday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on twitch.tv/itsallfunandgames. Or if you like what you see, but you don't have the time to actually go and watch it live, you can catch us on YouTube. Or if you just have a busy life, I understand everybody does, and you just want to catch this on audio, you can do so by just searching It's All Fun, Daily Sign-In in your favorite podcast service. And if you want to join the conversation, I really want to know how many people are looking forward to the new Phasmophobia and Among Us changes. And also, we would like to have more people to play with. We would like to increment the amount of people that we welcome to the community, and It's All Fun and Games. So you can join us on the Discord that is linked in the description below, or email us at itsallfunandgamestv@gmail.com. Other than that, again, thank you so much. I know it's crazy times out there, so it's fun to just take a little bit of escape, do your daily sign-in to the world of video games, and enjoy the news and have something to look forward to in the future. And with that, I leave you with your daily sign-off.